So, the Celtics officially became the luckiest franchise ever the other night thanks to some amazing management by Danny Ainge. It's not even been a full 10 seasons since the Celtics' last championship, but Boston has already built an entirely new roster that's in the Eastern Conference Finals with the #1 pick in a crazy draft class. The closest thing we've seen to this in recent memory was when the Detroit Pistons had a team that was contending with the #2 pick in the draft and a chance to select one of 3 future Hall of Famers. We can only hope Boston doesn't screw this up as bad as they did though. But the Celtics are in a different situation than the Pistons were, where they went on to win the championship the very next year despite drafting a bust. Boston still has to get a lot better before they can actually win a championship and probably get out of the Eastern Conference for that matter. And that's one of the things we're going to discuss today when I give you 3 of the most likely scenarios this summer in the NBA. What's up NBA fans, Dom 2K on the mic, and to be honest, I'm actually more interested in the NBA's offseason than I am the playoffs. I love the fact that Boston made the Eastern Conference Finals at all because I get to shit talk with my dad for about a week or so being that he's a Cleveland fan, and we're also pretty attractive to potential free agents this summer. But in reality, I don't expect to get further than 6 games with the Cavaliers, and even if we did somehow beat the Cavaliers, then we'd have the Western All-Star team to deal with, so it's not looking all that great. However, I think this summer is going to bring some fortune to a few teams that'll have the NBA looking just a bit different next year. Now, whether that means anything will be different come June 2018, I can't really tell yet. However, here are 3 scenarios I think are most likely to happen this summer. Number 3, Lob City is over. I've said this in previous videos, and after the Clippers' second consecutive first round exit, I'm more than sure that Lob City is coming to an end one way or another. It's interesting because earlier this year, Chris Paul actually verbally committed to a $200 million extension with the Clippers, but I don't know what happened to that, as the latest we've heard from him was that he hadn't thought about free agency, so I guess maybe he did finally get tired of losing every year. Either way, even if he does convince himself that losing every year is worth $200 million, I definitely think that Blake Griffin is gone. See, Blake has had some kind of injury for the last 2 seasons, and he just never seems to be there when the team needs him. With that being a fact, I don't know why the Clippers would pursue re-signing him just to continue to run into the same roadblock every season. I think Blake to the Thunder makes sense, and I've always said the next star player I want to see with Westbrook, he really needs to be a big man, because I don't know why putting another ball handling star with him makes any kind of sense when he clearly likes to dominate the ball. Blake is a decent mid-range guy for a big man, so a pick and pop scenario works, and overall it'd just be good to see Westbrook not sustain a back injury from carrying the team for another 82 games and some change including the playoffs. Also, there's the fact that Blake Griffin was born in Oklahoma, he played his high school and college ball there, so I don't know if that means he wants to leave the bright lights of Los Angeles to go back there, but in the event that things don't work out between him and the Clippers, it does make sense both basketball wise and life wise to go there. As for CP3, there's really no telling what he's going to do. The Spurs are in dire need of a point guard, just like I said they would be, seeing that Tony Parker might not ever play again, and if he does, there's no guarantee he'll be that good because age is now a factor. I'd like to imagine the Spurs want to make this addition because the Warriors are clearly a long-term problem. Pick and pop situations between Paul and Aldridge would be deadly, the defensive nightmare of Paul and Kawhi on the same team, basically everything I've already discussed in my Chris Paul video a few months ago, so you can go see that. If it's not the Spurs, I honestly don't know where else Paul would go that makes sense this summer, so we'll just have to wait and see. But in any case, I think we've seen the last of Lob City. Number 2, Paul George goes to LA. No Clipper fans, I'm not talking about you guys, I'm talking about your older brothers across the hall. Yes, I think Paul George to the Lakers is as good as done. Now, I'm gambling a bit saying it's going to happen this summer, but I think in the next few years this is definitely happening regardless. Well, possibly. Let's go ahead and get into it. You may recall when I made the video saying that the next step in Paul George's career was to go to the Celtics, and that did make logical sense at the time. However, after watching George on Jimmy Kimmel Live, I think we've all got our answer on where George really wants to be. Yes, for once it's not just an annoying rumor that a star player wants to be a Laker. Paul George absolutely implies he wants to be in LA in this video. Kimmel asked him if he's talked to Kobe about playing for the Lakers, and he doesn't deny it, but he says that he's working out with Kobe this summer and he's going to pick his brain. That's basically code for, yes, that's something we're going to be discussing. I advise you to go watch that whole clip because everything from his body language to the way he answers Kimmel's questions says that he's mentally already in Los Angeles. Magic Johnson was also on that show not too long ago, and he made it known he wants him in purple and gold. Now, originally I said it made no sense for George to go there because, well, why would you leave a losing situation in Indiana just to join one in LA? However, being that this is home for him, I'm guessing he's just putting faith in them that they can actually put together a contender pretty quickly. So as far as how this could actually happen, well, LA did end up with good fortune in the draft getting the second pick, so they clearly have the pieces to bargain for George, but now they have to play a dangerous and strategic game. Should they go ahead and gut the roster to get him when he's going to be a free agent anyways next summer with the chance to leave? That seems pretty risky, and the Knicks showed how bad it can be gutting a roster to get one superstar. But then there's the thing of, do they wait until he's a free agent next summer where he might get lured into a contending situation and pick somewhere over LA? Also, what if he got traded before the deadline in 2018 and he ends up believing in whatever situation he got put in there and then he just doesn't go to LA at all? Point is, LA is in a really tough situation here because although there's clearly interest from George for playing for the Lakers, that doesn't mean his tunnel vision is going to stick on that. There's still a lot of scenarios where they might lose out on him altogether. The safest and smartest way to do things this summer would be to just build with what they have and wait for Paul George to become a free agent in 2018 because that way they don't have to lose anything and they can just bring him in on top of whatever they're growing at the time. But then there's the risk of, what if LA just sucks this year? What if their draft prospect isn't that promising? Whoever they draft could still be a bust. We never know how that's going to work out. And then what if they don't even come close to the playoffs and that scares George away? What would that pitch be to him next summer if everything just goes wrong? In short, I'm not in LA's front office, but they've got a great chance to land a superstar this summer, and I think it's likely, but they're going to have to pay for it. Indiana is about to go into rebuild mode, and are they really going to trade George in a package that doesn't include LA's second pick? And is Los Angeles willing to trade a second pick for a player that has a year left on his contract? Number 1, Boston finally gets another star. This is the moment that Celtics fans have been anticipating for quite some time now. After robbing the Nets blind of their draft picks to move on from the Big Three era and pretty much also robbing the Suns for Isaiah Thomas, people have been saying for years, watch out for Boston, they're going to be the next dominant power in the East. Now, you know very well if you're a Boston fan, after this year's trade deadline, we were getting a bit restless because we knew ultimately that if we did end up in the conference finals with Cleveland, we need another star next to Isaiah to truly have a chance to beat them. However, I think it's fair to say things did work out because Boston became the winningest team in history to land the first pick in the draft, which gives them all the bargaining power they need to make any kind of deal this summer to improve the team and finally make them true contenders. However, I don't know that Boston is actually going to draft a player to keep this summer because all the best players in the drafts are guards. Newsflash, the Celtics don't need any more guards. Isaiah is the ball-handling superstar point guard, Avery Bradley is a great two-way guard that I highly doubt would enjoy being replaced by a rookie, and we just don't need to be trying to share ball-handling duties between Isaiah and another guy that would fit best as a point guard of a team. Plus, this is like Phoenix all over again when they had Isaiah, Bledsoe, and Dragic. That is a horrible idea to have so many good guards on one team, and it just really makes no kind of sense. The good thing is that with the first pick in the draft, Boston has all the leverage now and they can do whatever they want from here. One thing a lot of people have discussed for a while is a trade involving Jimmy Butler and the Celtics. This is something that was discussed back in February when Ainge gambled on the pick instead of trading for an established star, and we now see that was a good move. So now it really depends on how Boston and Chicago view their positions. If Chicago is ready to move forward with the full rebuild, they can trade Butler to Boston for the pick and maybe a couple of other assets, which is something the Celtics may be interested in. I'm not sure that they're really interested in that anymore. See, with this being a number 1 pick, I don't think Boston is really willing to include as much in the deal for a superstar, meaning they've made it this far and I don't think they're about to trade a pick, Avery Bradley, and Jay Crowder anywhere because that's really overpaying for any kind of star player. As a matter of fact, that's definitely overpaying when they can hold out and possibly snag Gordon Hayward in free agency this summer. Now, this is something I personally like a little bit better than trading for a star, but I don't know if it's going to happen. A couple of fans have asked me what I thought Hayward was going to do this summer, and I always said he was going to stay with the Jazz because it just looks like they have a good situation, but I do think he's going to at least look at Boston, especially since he used to be coached by Brad Stevens. Although I don't like the idea of pairing another star guard with Isaiah Thomas because I'm just never in favor of pairing point guards together, I will admit that I'm willing to give that a shot if we say draft Markelle Fultz and now we're able to lure Hayward in this summer. This way, not only do we have a great draft prospect, but we have a second star player, all without giving up any of our core that's made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm actually in love with that idea because Chicago's not about to just give us Jimmy Butler, and I think it would take way too many moves to get a trade for Butler and then still try to sign Hayward. As a matter of fact, I don't even know if that's possible with the cap space. As a matter of fact, that really might not be possible because Isaiah Thomas becomes a free agent in 2018 and they have to pay him too, so yeah, I don't really think that's a good scenario. So for as long as Boston fans have been crying out for a trade, the best action this summer might actually be inaction because they're an attractive free agent destination right now. Why wouldn't a free agent like Hayward want to come there? And also, why would they gut a team that made it to the Eastern Conference Finals to get a star player? That might not be a good idea. That might actually set them backwards. But again, the only thing that bothers me is I hate using lottery picks, especially a number 1 pick, on players that aren't going to start immediately. Is Boston going to start Fultz or Ball over Bradley immediately? I really don't think so. See, Avery Bradley has really impressed me since the days of the Big 3 era, and he's only gotten better since then. However, we're assuming that whoever we draft with the first pick is going to eventually become an NBA superstar, and to do that, you kind of need opportunities to play. See, in LA, when they decided not to start Ingram, although I didn't agree with that, it was okay because he was coming behind Luol Deng, who we know isn't going to be around that much longer. But in Boston, Avery Bradley is 26 years old, and he's just now having his best season as a pro. Putting Fultz or Ball behind him, when are they going to have a chance to overtake him and become superstars? That's the big issue Boston eventually has to deal with should they keep that pick. The other issue they got to deal with is how does that pick develop behind Thomas and Hayward should he sign there this summer? Both of those guys are going to be taking shots, and then there's still Al Horford on top of that, who still needs his look because he's been pretty super effective in the playoffs. But then you're going to have a rookie who somehow has to reach his potential in that lineup as well. So in that situation, I think you might run into something like you had with the Thunder and James Harden, where he was a superstar player and he just didn't have the opportunity to show it because he was behind Westbrook and Kevin Durant, and before you know it, they've cut him loose and he's become a star somewhere else. So from that perspective, the question becomes, do you just avoid this headache overall and trade that pick for an established star while you still can? Remember, there's not even a guarantee this prospect can become an NBA star, so Boston really has to play their cards right pretty quickly. Anyways, those are the 3 scenarios I see happening this summer. Just to recap, Lob City is getting the boot, George is going to find his way to LA because the Lakers don't want to miss out on him, and Boston is going to end up with the 3rd star one way or another. Do you agree with these scenarios? What do you actually think about them individually? And do you have any other scenarios you think might play out this summer? I'd love to read them in the comment section, so leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Hit the bell next to my name if you want notifications on my videos. I'm Dom2K, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.